Warning, the following podcast is brought to you by dads who are still perfecting their dad jokes, but not very well. Welcome to the All Pro Dad Podcast.
Hey, this is the All Pro Dad Podcast. I'm Ted Lowe, father of 4. I'm joined today by my buddies, Mr. BJ Foster, who has 2 kids.
Yeah, hi, Ted.
Lightweight. And lightweight. And Bobby, who's it's a little better. He has 3.
3 kids. I'm beating BJ. It's great.
So together,
I'm getting crushed at this table.
Yeah. So together, we have a lot of kids and a whole lot of questions.
You guys are hip and cool. You got Instagram accounts. You're with it. You're happening. You're in the digital world. I'm curious to know, do you know who the world's largest social media influencer is? Any guesses?
No.
Who would you think it might be?
Taylor Swift.
Kylie,
Jenner.
No. Maybe.
Good guesses. It is Cristiano Ronaldo. Would you like to make the soccer player? Would you like to make a wild guess as to how many social followers he has? Across all platforms.
Across all platforms?
Mm-hmm. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
I feel like I'm going to 10 million.
10 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
10 million and 1.
Maybe you guys are not as with it as I thought. It's 1 billion. 1 billion social followers across all platforms. 651 just on Instagram.
You know what? I don't feel bad.
Well, no. Well, he's a little ahead of you, which is fine. But here's what's interesting about it to me. I was doing some research on social media influencers. He made, in 2023, $3.23 million per Instagram post.
What?
Because he has such a large following. It blew my mind. I was like, this is incredible. 3 million every time he hit send on an Instagram post, $3 million because he's considered a social media influencer. It is incredible to me. It's called social media marketing. Data shows businesses make like $6.50 for every dollar they spend on social media marketing. And I was like, man, this is wild. People are so easily influenced. And then it hit me. They're marketing to your kids. Not just me. I'm not every person that follows Cristiano Ronaldo is going to be, 16 years old, 14 years old. They're going to be adults, but there's kids as well. And so whatever he's hawking on Instagram or any of the other social media influencers you mentioned, they're targeting kids. And it just got me thinking about who and what influences our kids.
Who influenced you guys as a kid? Like, let's rewind back to, when during Pilgrim days, and which I'm a part of. My daughter actually asked me one time when she said, "When were you born?" And I told her, she said, "So Dad, were you a pilgrim?" So let's go back to Pilgrim days. What influenced
Story
you?
time's over. I don't like your attitude. Go to sleep.
What influenced you as a kid?
It's going to sound stupid, but my parents were a big influence on me. I mean, there were a lot of influences, but my parents...
and George Washington, yeah.
George Washington, all the people who lived back then.
Yeah.
There were some adults, coaches, youth group, young life leaders were influential. My friends. And then I would say the experiences that I was having were huge influences on me. Especially the painful ones.
What about now? What's influencing you guys now?
Gosh, man, I hope it's friends because I've tried to surround myself with friends who are challenging me and friends who are holding me accountable. I hope it's those people. And of course, my wife. BJ, what about you?
Yeah, I would say family members. That's probably the biggest, the people that I'm surrounded with, which are, family members, friends. But I think there are people in the world that still, if we kind of think that the world is not impacting us, it's definitely has a huge impact.
I forgot to mention Cristiano Ronaldo. He's of course
right. Yeah. You're his number one fan.
I followed him first, day one. Man.
Yeah, I was
I
kind of
don't
wondering.
even watch soccer. I'm like, I got to follow this guy.
Kind of wondering how much does 200 followers get you from Instagram?
Probably not 3 million, but $3.
In fact, they'll give you $3 to get off.
Yeah,
just get right on off.
Exactly.
We're cleaning out Instagram, and you've made the "we're getting rid of you" section.
What about you?
I would say, of course, my wife, at the end of the day, she is settling place. I'm all over the place, different things, and she's the commonplace. She's very smart. So I would say my wife and podcast.
Yeah.
I listen. Most of the conversations I have with others starts with, "Hey, I was listening to this podcast." And I'm like, I think probably people are really getting bored with that. But I'm fascinated from, health and fitness to, humor and different things. And so podcasts are huge.
As long as you throw in, hey, you should listen to the All Pro Dad podcast at the end. That's cool.
I don't need to throw it in because you just did.
That's true.
That's fantastic.
Subscribe.
And speaking of influencing, look at that transition. See, I do listen to podcasts. The big question of the week is who and what is influencing your child? Who and what is influencing your child?
So kids between the ages of 12 and 18, because I think mainly because those are kind of the ages where they start to separate from their parents and start to explore the world a little bit more. They're the most vulnerable in terms of being influenced.
Yeah.
So I can't remember when. I think it was over a year ago though. I started to hear the name Andrew Tate kind of everywhere. And I didn't know who it was. It was like the soccer player you mentioned. I just kind of thought,
who is this guy?
Yeah. Who is this guy? I don't really know who he is.
Then you learned and got mad.
Yeah, right. Well, I started to look into him and I thought, boy, this is kind of something. I'm like, how long has this guy been around? He's been around for a while. So I decided to ask my son was 15 at the time. And he apparently had this big influence on young boys. Yeah. And so I went home and asked my son, I said, have you ever heard of Andrew Tate? He goes, oh yeah. Like he had known who he was for a while.
Yeah.
And one of his friends actually would quote him like a lot. Now I think his friend would quote him a lot because he likes to stir the pot.
Sure.
I don't think he really believed. And I was pleasantly surprised to hear that my son was like, yeah, I don't like him. I don't like the things he says. I don't like what he stands for. And I was like, okay, that's good. But the wake up call to me was my son had known him for a long time.
Yeah.
And I had no idea who he was. And he had heard the things that he had said for a while.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, I mean, there's maybe some people listening who don't know who that is or never heard that name. Who is that person? He's an
influencer who, he's got very misogynistic takes on women and has a very, I think, negative influence from that perspective. He's since even me hearing his name, he was arrested in Europe for trafficking. For some, sexual trafficking, that kind of, I mean, some pretty serious.
So not someone you want
stuff.
Your 12-year-old learning from is what you're saying. Okay.
No. Yeah. And he's got, he's kind of this pseudo alpha male kind of, we need to kind of control. I don't know.
Not a good influence.
Is that kind of it? He's a
degenerate pimp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well,
yeah.
I texted my two older boys and I was like, hey, what do you think about Andrew Tate? And that's the only thing. And my oldest son came back. He is the worst of the worst.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so what, the people still follow him? He says, when the trafficking thing started, he was dropped from relevancy. So I thought, wow, this guy had to go all the way to sex trafficking for people to go, maybe he's not a good guy.
Yeah,
but both of my boys were like, no, he's the worst of the worst, which good. Cause I didn't know who he was until we started prepping for this podcast. I'm going, who's Andrew Tate? Is he a good guy? I'm like, no, he's the worst guy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But he's had a significant impact on a lot of boys out there.
And it's interesting to me that your son, who, is a teenager right in that sweet spot, 12 to 18, he knew exactly who it was before you'd ever heard the name.
Right.
Interesting.
And my son is, homeschooled, but he knew him. And my son is not, my kids are not on social media.
Yeah.
Other than they'll watch some YouTube shorts. But they're not on Instagram. They're not on Facebook. They're not on TikTok, anything like that. And
they still knew the name.
They not only knew the name, but knew the teaching, knew the stuff that had been coming out of his mouth. Sure thing.
Like you said, it was a wake-up call.
It was a wake-up call to me, yeah.
Yeah, this episode in particular, as we were getting ready for the episode, I thought, man, this one it kind of hits me in the gut because this feels so overwhelming that your kid is, in this land that we didn't even know existed. We feel like we're pretty dialed in dads, and all of a sudden we're going, whoa, this person has influence. All these other people have influences on our kids. So this isn't to scare anybody, but this is something for us to be aware of. Here's a couple things that dads that we need to remember as we think about influences. Point number one is there isn't one influence. Like it's not Andrew Tate is the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about it in this way. We have primary influences. That's our friends. That's our family. That's our teachers. That's maybe your youth group leader, if the kids go to church, those sort of people that they see all the time, the primary influences, and they make a huge impact on your kids' lives. We have 3 kids, and our youngest is in kindergarten, and she was hanging out with this other child just because they kind of live in the neighborhood, and that's another kid the same age, and they play. But we noticed that our daughter started to adopt certain behaviors that we didn't teach her. Her older siblings didn't teach her. She was saying things the other day like, we've never said that. The other day, she said something that shocked us. She's like, well, if you don't do that, you could go to hell. And I was like, what the heck? I've never said that in front of my kid. And I was like, you're 6 years old. Where do you hear this? It was from her buddy that they play with and they have fun. They're in the sandbox or whatever. And that language made it into my child's brain, and then she regurgitated it to her sibling. I was like, wow, this primary influence is really making a difference in her life. So the people they're around the most make a huge difference for them.
Bobby, that's primary, right? That's good. What about secondary? Let's think about secondary influences. Wow. There's a lot of, there's TV, there's music, there's culture, there's technology, there's community, there's socioeconomic status. There's just so many things coming at them.
Yeah. This is where I think the real danger, we can call this secondary, but to think that this has less impact than being around the people, I think is something we need to think about. Yeah. Because parents are hypervigilant in protecting their kids in the real world, but the kid comes home, from school, he goes right up to his room and he's on his computer and he's on his phone for hours upon hours.
Listening to Andrew Tate.
Right.
Yeah.
Or who else? Like who is your kid listening to? Because here's the reality. The people that we become is very much connected to what we love the most and what we listen to. Mm. And so who is your kid listening to the most? And we think that they're safe when they're in their room, when the reality is they are being molded and shaped by who knows who. We need to know who. We should know who. We should be asking our kids, Absolutely. What are you consuming? What are you taking in? Who's on social media these days? Even just the question of, hey, have you heard about this person? Here's the thing. I still don't know who the soccer player is. I don't know what the soccer player is saying to anybody. What is he saying? I'm sure he's a great player, obviously. But what does he stand for, and how is that impacting our kids?
Right. And we have to keep asking. I asked my oldest son, who teaches 7th grade, I was like, hey, who's the new influencer? If this is not Andrew Tate, who is it? And he goes, it changes from week to week.
Yeah.
So this isn't a one-time conversation. This is something we need to be doing over and over and over.
Absolutely.
The other influence we need to think about is their internal influences, just who they are, their temperament, their personality, how resilient, are our kids, their self-esteem. Our youngest came to us when she was 9, and she was the master at being a chameleon to whoever she was around. Yeah. So when she was around the right kid, it was beautiful. And then you would see her personality completely change. So she's been our kid that we really have to watch who's influencing her.
Right. Well, you've talked so many times about Fred in the head.
Oh, yeah.
It's what's the internal voice?
Absolutely.
What are they telling themselves? What are they believing about themselves?
Oh, and that's the heartbreak for me when I think about kids are getting standards in their head of what's attractive, what's not, who's cool, who's not. I was reading a study the other day that says that we are neurologically wired to live locally, and we're living globally.
Yeah.
So we used to have the local influence of friends, neighbors, school, and now our kids are having to compete and to analyze and be influenced by the globe. It's a lot.
And then another influence is situational influence. So the things that happen, whether it be moving or divorce or trauma of some kind, as a way of molding and shaping and leaving wounds that can affect them for years.
Right. Over the last 2 years, as I've worked with Family First, creating articles and thinking about parenting, I have said the phrase, I remember when I lost my mom, or after I lost my mom, or before I lost my mom, more times in the last 2 years than I probably have in the last 2 decades. Yeah. Because what it's doing, it makes me realize and reflect back how much that trauma changed my life, how I viewed things. It created some OCD in me. It created hypervigilance in me. And so we've just got to say, what has our kid been through? And gosh, do they need their dads to be there side by side with them to go, hey, I can't control what's going on in this world, but I'm going nowhere, right? We've just got to know that with our kids, that they're going through, trauma every day. And I know people, that's an overused word, but it's just true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then you have emerging influences. So social issues of the day, global events, pandemic, all those kinds of things that, ultimately can have a huge impact on our kids too.
It kind of ties into the digital world we live in, because when I was a kid, I would have no idea if there was an earthquake in Thailand. No idea, because I didn't live in Thailand. And now not only do you hear about it, you see someone died, you see how many people die. And so it's a little different world. Those can influence your kids, because maybe it's 5,000 miles away, but it feels closer. And that influence is a really big deal. It shapes their worldview.
And then it's those influencers who are given their filter and they're tying it together. That's the thing. It's like they listen to the news via their influencer. If that's good news, I guess that's good news. If that's bad news, that's bad news.
Yeah. We mentioned a couple of different kinds of influences, but children are susceptible to all of these for a number of reasons. The main one, I think, is brain development. University of Minnesota had a study that said around 80% of brain development happens in a child's first 1,000 days. So what's that, about 4 years old? And then 90% of their brain development happens before they exit kindergarten. So whatever you allow into your child's life when they're little, it really makes an impact. Those first couple of years sets the course. And some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, like this is a wake-up call. Yikes, let's course correct, because maybe you allowed more into their life than you thought, or I know I've done that. These influences, it's hard to pull them back once we let them in.
I mean, you talk about brain development. One of the things that we've talked about on this podcast is the fact that kids don't have the prefrontal cortex developed, so therefore they don't have cause and effect. Mm-hmm. And so they're not able to kind of see what the consequences of their actions are going to be. Yeah. And on top of that, they just have this limited experience to draw on that, my mom, I've talked about this before, she said, hey, when I would get them on my kids, when I'd get on their case, she's like, hey, they just got here, like she's.
That's a great line.
It
Double
really
click on that just a second.
My 4-year-old had done something and I was kind of getting in his face about it. And she's like, he just got here. He's been on Earth for 4 years. Yeah. Why do you think he should know this stuff? Yeah. But
just got here.
We can easily go, oh yeah, a 4-year-old shouldn't know anything.
Yeah.
And then we expect teenagers to know. And it's like, no, they just got here. Yeah. Teenagers just got here. They have limited experience to draw on. So they're counting on other people to kind of show them the way, especially adults. And unfortunately, they look to their peers.
Yeah.
And hopefully they're going to look to us occasionally, right? Yeah. They'll lean into us, and we do have more influence.
More than occasionally.
Yeah.
They won't let you know. Like I said, right. When I was in high school, I would have never told you my parents are my biggest influence, but they were
Absolutely.
And are. Absolutely. They're number one. You're number one.
Right. Sometimes, the limited experience surprises me, because when my second son was going from 5th grade to 6th grade, it was summer, and someone's like, you better talk to him about sex. You don't want him to go into middle school and be caught off guard and get embarrassed. So I took him to his favorite restaurant and we sat down and we talked about it. My boy looks at me across the table going into 6th grade and said, so you scarred me for 2 reasons? And I don't even know what those 2 reasons were. So like I do often this podcast, I'll text them and go back to their memories. And here's what he said. I said, do you remember me talking to you at the restaurant about sex the summer before you were going into 6th grade? He says, gross. I say.
And he's how old now?
22.
Oh, gosh.
I said, do you remember? Yes. So what do you remember about it? That it was gross. That sex seemed gross? Yes. As well as the conversation. And so I just thought that is, this is my boy's, gross is usually anything emotional he's going to go. But the child knew nothing. and I scarred him at Sweet Tomatoes in Alpharetta, Georgia. So it is those things. I did want him to be ahead of the game. Who knows if that was a good play or not, but I just wanted to be there for him. Go, hey, I want you to hear this from me instead of a grid from kids talking to you about sex like they did for us.
I mean, I got to tell you, gross coming from you.
Gross.
Is 1,000 billion times better than whatever else they're getting from somebody else.
Good. I feel better about it because his text would say otherwise. So thanks for patting me on the back. That's what we try to do on this podcast. We got you, even when they don't know. Yep. Maybe he'll have his kid and he'll experience gratitude then.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to wait for it though. Right. I'm just going to wait on that to happen. Here's some other reasons that our kids are susceptible to influences. It's because emotional sensitivity. Kids feel things more deeply because they don't know how to deal with them. It just takes them off guard. Like, I've got no place to process this emotionally. I've never seen this. I've never dealt with this. I don't have the intellect to deal with that. And that breaks my heart for kids. That breaks my heart for kids having to see all this stuff so early. So there's an emotional sensitivity to it. They also have a huge desire for approval. I mean, that's nothing new, right? I mean, all kids really want to be liked and do well. So they are more susceptible to the influences of all things, because they want to be approved. They want to have approval from other people.
I mean, I think it's important to remember here that kids are like sponges, that they are absorbing everything.
Yeah.
They're taking everything in, all the information. And I think one of the things in terms of forming their identity, which is what they really want to do, one of the things that they're trying to figure out is, where do I belong? And they are looking for belonging. And if they do not feel like they belong in your home, they're going to look for it in other places. Mm-hmm. So whether it's with a group of friends who might be bad influences, or whether it might be a group of 10 million people who follow so-and-so, they're looking for that belonging.
They want to belong. And we all want to belong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're that age. They just want to be included, right? So let's get really practical on this, because this can be overwhelming, right? This can be totally overwhelming. So what are some really simple but powerful things that we can do? We've got to identify the bad influences, and then don't be afraid to cut them out. If you've got the power to do that, you dial in some and dial out others, right?
Yeah, I think we have more influence to cut out bad things than we think. You know, you talked about it before, BJ. We've had conversations about social media and things. Just cut it out. Like, if it's a bad influence on them, cut it out. And you used the example in a previous episode where if your kids were doing heroin, what's bad? Just cut it out. It's the same idea with an influence. If you are overhearing your kids talk about Andrew Tate, he's the coolest guy, cut it out. Take away whatever device or whatever it is that they're watching videos or listening to things that are, poor influence. Just cut them out. It's easier said than done, but you have to do this as a dad.
Yeah. Well, at least a bare minimum. Don't let your kids disappear into their rooms for hours.
Yeah.
Like, have limitations on that. Some of it is just replacing bad influences with good. If you give them 10 hours to be in their room to search stuff, they're going to run into stuff. Instead, create some family time. Say, hey, we're going to do this. Or, hey, you're not allowed to take your phone into your room.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be in public spaces. And by the way, if I'm going to give you a phone, I can search it anytime I want.
Yeah.
And I can take away social media if I want.
Violence, cut it out. I don't want violent kids. So anything that's violent, get rid of it. Anything that goes opposite of what our family values are, cut that out. I don't want that either. It's keeping your ear to the ground, listening to the stuff that's going in and out of their ears, and anything that you see that's molding your kid in the wrong direction, cut it out. Get rid of it, because it's ultimately going to shape a kid in a way you may not like.
Well, the subtle thing is, and I've fallen into this plenty. So this is my confession. I introduced my kids to stuff early, probably too early, where I just wanted to move on from Pixar.
It's time to watch Caddyshack.
Yeah, it's time to watch Caddyshack, and I'll fast forward a couple parts. Yeah. But introducing your kids to the Avengers movies early, and I don't I don't think that those are horrible, but there are things that with those that there's violence with that. There's not blood splurting everywhere,
Sure.
but it's easy to kind of move from that into, okay, he's been watching that. Can he do John Wick now? Like,
Sure.
I mean,
well, that's where you
slide into
define
these things.
age appropriate.
Yeah.
And you know your kids better than anybody else. So what's age appropriate for your house may not be age appropriate next door, or it may not be age appropriate in grandma's eyes or whatever. But you have to decide with your kids and with your wife, what's age appropriate? What can they handle? And this comes into play in our house all the time because my oldest daughter, she's almost 14, loves like suspense and scary movies and things like that. My 10-year-old, man, he will wet the bed with Care Bears. Like if you're watching, it's terrible.
Your poor 10-year-old.
I know.
I'm so sorry for Bobby's son who he just explodes.
It's an
Your
exaggeration.
son that would wet the bed with
some
Care Bears.
10-year-old I know wets the bed. No,
Yeah.
that's an exaggeration. But we're in Pixar world with
Sure.
him. Like we watch cars, right? He's not watching even things that you would consider like fantasy, like Jurassic Park. There's no dinosaurs, but he would get scared watching dinosaurs eat a guy sitting on the toilet in Jurassic Park. Like that would scare him. So we don't do that. It's age appropriate. And so if we were to allow him to watch that all the time, he would become a more fearful kid. And I don't want that.
No.
So it's age appropriate. Figure it out, what works for you. And, for me, I do love those fun conversations where the kids are joyful and they're excited. My daughter, she watched Jurassic Park. She'd be like, this is the coolest movie ever. It's amazing. That would bring her joy. Any kind of influence that would zap their joy, I cut those out. I don't want any sort of that childhood wonder, that excitement, that joy that they feel just naturally as being kids to be taken away from them. And if there's something influencing them away from that, I'm done with it. Get it out.
Right. And I think we have to be, as we talk about cutting out and getting rid of it, I think with kids, when they're seeing something they don't really emotionally understand, there's an undercurrent of shame already. Like this doesn't feel right. So I think as we cut things out, we do it gently, not a huge reaction, and just talk through. Here's why: because they don't know that it's not okay. They don't know because they've been alone watching this that we've allowed. And so I think it's just important to say, as we cut things out, to do it with kindness and consideration. Okay, we talked about dialing back the bad influences. Now let's talk about dialing in the good ones.
Yes.
Who are those influences in your kids' lives? The things that are good, that do Pixar, bringing joy, or different things and people, our oldest, he was really connected to one of his youth group leaders at church. And we were so thankful because this is when he was kind of going, I got it. Well, he told us that since he was 2, but when he was getting the phase where he was pushing back with some things on us, and he loved, his name was Nathan Castleberry. He still talks to him, but Nathan could say things to him that we believed and wanted for his life when we couldn't. He would listen to Nathan when he was not listening to us. And so I don't care who's dialing in the good influence on them. It doesn't have to be me, but I think we've got to be intentional of dialing. Who are those people in your kid's life that are good for them, and turning up the dial? Spend more time with them, hang out with them, and just creating those good things for our kids and good people.
One of the most beautiful things you can find as a dad is someone who cares about your kids as much as you do.
That's good.
And that's a hard person to find sometimes. But when you find him, hold on to that guy, hold on to that neighbor, hold on to that person at the T-ball game or whatever, because when you find people that care about your kids and want them to grow up and be strong individuals just like their own children, man, that guy's going to be, more than likely running parallel to you and your family values and just wanting what's best for your kids. Hold on to that person because that's a really good influence on your kids. I give my buddies, I have a handful of them, I give them permission to correct my kids. If they're over at their house and my daughter says something inappropriate, or my son, he's like, oh, let's watch something bad. Like, no. We don't do that. And when you have those good influences that you trust as a dad, you can hand over some parenting responsibilities to them when you're not around. That is a gem of a guy to hang on to.
Yeah. Well, I think your kids are going to benefit from that. But I would even dial it back before that. I would say, who has the most influence on our kids? It's you. It's you. You as the dad. And immediately we kind of think that it has to be instruction, training, teaching. And really, it's not even that. It's just presence. It's being there. It's playing together. It's watching movies together. And all of those things where your kid's just watching you. your kids watching what you do, watching how you react to the world, watching how you face challenges and try to grow from it. They are picking up all of that. We talked about how they're sponges. They're sponges picking up all the things from you. Like Ted, you talked about when they wouldn't listen to us. They might not have listened to your words, but I guarantee you they were taking it all in from you and Nancy. And so this is why being around is so important. This is why just hanging out side by side is so important. So really, trust me, it's not about the instruction. It's all about spending time together.
Because it's the time that gives us influence with our kids.
Yeah.
The more time, the more quality time, the more laughter, the more fun, more influence. Right? That's so good, BJ.
And lean into that too, if you're a dad. I was talking to someone the other day and he's like, oh yeah, my kid's birthday's coming up, so I can't go to whatever event we wanted to go to. We're going to the birthday party. And I was like, good. Like, go enjoy that time with your kid. You're going to miss something here and there, but when you're pouring into them and you are accepting that role as influence and you recognize that it exists, it's not like you had to take it on, it just happened. When you lean into your role as an influencer with your child, they're going to be better off for it. Don't back away from that.
But I mean, and this gets into a little bit of a different podcast, but I think in our parenting these days, we're so intense. We're so committed to teaching, and we got to prepare them and all this, and we furrow brow it. And all of a sudden they pick up on all of that and they get anxious and they get tense. One of the things I love about you, Ted, is all the time you talk about having fun and playing with your kids. And I got to tell you, that more than anything is one of your best influences. Is just, let's play together. It's not that, we don't have to be so serious about life. Let's just go through. And they are picking that up. How does my dad deal with the intensity of life? Gosh, he seems like he just goes through it and enjoys it. And that wins your influence. That wins them over.
Pretty soon you'll be making $3 million per Instagram post. That's great.
That's right. Yeah. You have more influence than that guy.
You do. Yeah. That's the truth. You do have more influence than Cristiano Ronaldo.
You don't make as much money probably, but you do have greater influence.
With your kids, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And with that, we're going to move to our pro move of the week. And that is to consider, what are those influences that you need to dial back in your kid's life? And what are those influences that you need to dial in? Consider that this week and make a small move in that direction. You guys, thanks. This is good. They're all important, but this one's, feels a little extra important. Maybe this. Hey, we want to say thank you so much for listening. And can you do us a favor? Can you go online and rate and review this podcast? It helps other dads to find it. And that would be very, very helpful for us. I want to say thank you guys for hanging out with me, and thank you for listening. We know that you and your kids will be glad that you did.
Thanks again for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. Behind every episode is our amazing team. Producer, Haley Mawat, audio and video editor, Buck Buchanan, and production coordinator, Corey Walliff. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. So remember, if you have more questions than answers, then you're probably in the right place. See you next time.